Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Outpost Live. We've got quite the cast here for you today. We'll have everybody introduce themselves real quick. Let's see. Let's start off with Greg in the upper corner. Why don't you tell us who you guys are?
I'm Greg Littlefield. I play Nathaniel Farmer.
Andrea Littlefield. And who do I play again? No.
I think this time it's Wall.
Yeah.
Wall. Awesome. And next to me is
Micah Raymond. I'm the computer.
and you know me, I'm Tony Raymond. I play Vodek, amongst other things. And
I'm Dan McIntosh. I have done the voice of Taldeen. Other than that, I White.
awesome. Carolyn.
I'm Carolyn Collins-Peterson, and I play Jeneth of the House of Caden, and I've also played Captain Baker.
Awesome. Nice background, by the way. Edward.
Hi, yes, I'm Edward Winterrose, and I play Captain Monty Buchanan.
Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Cromie, and my recurring role is as Verk the Ferengi, or Verk the Ferengi if my normal voice doesn't sound like it.
Paul. Paul.
For the technical issues there, I couldn't get
There you
it. Good evening, everyone. This is Paul Lavelle. I am Captain Russell Steele, and I'm also your credits and trailers announcer.
Thank you. Annie.
Hi, my name is Annie G, and I play Lieutenant Robin Hood, the security chief of the Chimera.
Awesome. Renika.
Hey guys, I'm Ronika Kendall, but most people call me Ro for short because it's hard to pronounce. I do various roles, background noises, minor characters, including Moraine, who was a one-shot bounty hunter gig on the Enclave. So great to see you guys.
Doug.
Hi everyone, I'm Doug Cromie, and I play Turgle, Verk's more handsome brother.
All right. I don't know about that.
We've also had my wife, Karen, who's not on this call, played Ensign Thomas's mom in one sequence, and Ben's brother Mark has played a number of roles, including Darst from the First Federation.
Awesome. Tag.
Hi.
It was nice saying that. Hello. I'm Tag, and I did a t-shirt design for Outpost.
A t-shirt design. Come on! Oh, that was beautiful.
And Tag also did a voice in those last mini-sode that we just aired that was recorded a year ago at Fort Collins Comic-Con.
This is a great shirt. I love it.
Thomas.
Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas Barnes. I'm not a main cast member. I've played a multitude of various background characters. I have played Nell Hermanson, and I've also played Admiral Havelock in charge of all your butts. And most recently, I played Phil in the most recent full episode.
Awesome. I guess next up is Patrick.
Hi, I'm Patrick Stevens. I play Gasson Vistrock. Not that you realize that from my regular voice, with the high squeaky voice I have to do for that, which I have to practice to get into. I've done a few other minor roles here and there for the cast.
Awesome. Nick.
Hi, I'm MedTech Giles, and I am currently running the live stream.
Nick is our vital web gnome.
We will try, yeah.
Carrie.
Hi, this is Carrie. Who am I? Oh, Arvin Bertal is who I play, and glad to be out here, guys. I hope you can see me. Like I said, technical difficulties. I'm hearing only about half of what you guys are saying, so it must be my bandwidth. It's kind of low.
Thanks, Carrie.
Sorry.
All right, Vince,
yeah,
you're up.
Pardon?
My name is Vincent Brownlee, and you might recognize me as Mr. Lancer.
Awesome. Brittany, welcome.
Hey!
We're just introducing ourselves and what role we play.
Hi, my name is Brittany Ebert, and I play Engineer Gliss.
Awesome. Jonathan.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jonathan Jackson, but you might recognize my voice as Lieutenant Commander Gregory Torkelson. And for those of you with longer memories, I once played a role, Med Tech Cal, for a few episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. And then the other John.
This one?
That one.
I'm John. I play Chief Bert Knox.
The infamous Chief Bert Knox.
Bert Knox.
And then last but not least, Elise.
Hi, this is Elise Crowick. I play Dr. Winston.
Well, again, thank you guys for all being here. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We've got a lot of questions. We're going to try to cram it all into an hour. And we'll start off with the biggest question that came out of our Facebook group was, how are you all doing? They really want to know how we're all doing because, A, it's been a rough year for us in 2019, and now we've got this pandemic sweeping the globe, and so people are concerned about us. So how are you all doing?
I would like to go first as far as that goes because you know my lengthy story, Tony. Basically, I was working in Alaska I was there for a 6-month contract. I didn't even know this Corona crap was going on. I was completely cut off. Okay, no phone, no television, no radio, nothing. So finally, I got laid off, and I was being sent home. And before I got sent home, I got a massive infection, and I had to go to the hospital when I was in Washington. That's how I found out about this Corona crap. I was in the hospital for a week being pumped full of antibiotics, and here I am in all my weird glory.
Who's next?
Oh, hell with it. I'll go. Let's see.
Never mind.
Back
Go ahead,
in
Edward.
last
Go
July,
ahead.
Oh, we didn't.
I essentially got laid off myself, but picked up a job doing creative writing for a game finishing shop, essentially a shop doing miniatures for Warhammer type things. I was writing their blog for them. And that basically petered out in January. So I actually managed to get applied for unemployment before the current crisis came down. So right now I'm covered and still looking for work.
One person we skipped over here, and it's because she wasn't on my feed, was Chris Cree. Chris, you want to introduce yourself and what part you play?
Hey, okay. So hi, I'm Chris Cree. I have done a lot of background characters, but people will mostly know me as Melian, the space pirate.
The cat space pirate.
Vacation?
Vacation, yep.
Yes, indeed.
Meow.
So how are the rest of you all doing?
Doing well here in New Orleans. Places like a ghost town. You think of this place crawling with people, and it's an absolute ghost town.
You want a ghost town? See Vegas right now.
I can bet.
It is. Vegas is wild.
Vegas is currently deserted. It is literally a ghost town. The casinos, I swear to God, I saw the pictures. They're all boarded up.
You think of the French Quarter down over in New Orleans as just crawling with people all the time, 24/7. And I've seen pictures. You could hold bowling tournaments on the streets. They're so empty.
It's the same thing here in Austin, Texas. We just moved back last summer, and just in time for this to hit. But around the time that South by Southwest was supposed to happen, a photojournalist went through downtown and filmed all the usual haunts down there, and everything was just deserted. So it's good at least that some folks are following the shelter in place
Absolutely.
order. So that helps.
Especially
That said, there's going to be plenty of pictures for people to use in post-apocalyptic fiction afterward, right?
At least they'll have something
Lots
to
of photographs of
reference
that,
to.
drones, everything. Yeah.
I got to tell you something. If I didn't have a database of television shows, movies and video games, I'd be tearing out what's left of my hair.
Yeah. Oh, do I
So
have
I'm up in the mountains of Colorado, and I'm already pretty isolated anyway. But my husband and I run a company that works with planetariums and science centers and museums around the world. And since December, it's been like watching lights go off around the world. All of our clients have shut down, or they've gone on hiatus for a while. So, for example, I was working with a group of people in Shanghai for a science and technology center there, and I get maybe one email a week from them, and they're basically saying we're still all hunkered down. And they ask us, how are you doing? And now I get to tell them, well, it's sweeping across our country. So far, we haven't gotten it. We're wearing masks. I've been spending a lot of time sewing masks for other people, and doing a little science writing and trying to do the best I can to keep from going nuts here.
Oh, come on. You're scared? Klingons are supposed to be tough. They're not afraid of nothing.
I am not a Klingon, you patak.
Do not test your patience with me, little one. Things are never what they appear to be.
So, and I'm actually in a Native American reservation, and it's kind of weird being a teacher in a reservation area. And right now, it's kind of chaos. Technically, we have curfew. We have to be in our buildings from 10 p.m. until 5 in the morning. But again, we have a lot of people that like to go the extreme. And a couple nights ago, like about 11 o'clock at night, I would hear the sirens go off because they were on a wild chase because someone wanted to be a speed demon. So it's kind of rough where I'm located in a reservation school. And of course, as you guys seen online and also in the news, Native American areas are getting hit the worst, it seems like.
Jonathan, you're on a university campus. Is yours as much of a ghost town as the University of Arizona? I walked through the mall on Friday at about 11 in the morning, and I think I saw 15 people.
Well, I'm actually affiliated with Harvard Medical School, and we are busier than ever. So we're one of the big places that have ramped up to try to respond. So a lot of us are doing working remotely. Some of us are being redeployed in the larger hospitals. So there's a chance that I'll probably have to go back into Mass General Hospital in the next couple of weeks to help with the patient surge. But I've actually been out for 3 weeks because I'm just recovering from COVID. So yeah, I felt good. This is like my second good day. But there are other parts of the university, like the Harvard main campus and a lot of the campuses around Boston have pretty much emptied out. But the scientists, we're working hard.
Yeah. Jonathan, Mass General is where I got a lot of my medical work done back when I lived there. It's like a town within a town.
Very much so. Very much so.
I actually work at a university also, and they've basically told us, all to work from home, and the students were sent home. Whatever students could go home were sent home. There are still a few students on campus, and they're trying to make accommodations for those students the best they can. But it's really tough for like the international students especially, because it's there was actually an article on Vox, I think it was, from a Korean international student who was talking about her experience being on an empty campus with, after everybody's been gone. And it's really odd because like my work day, has completely changed. And living in New Jersey, one of the most trafficked, most dense trafficked states in this United States, you see no cars on the road. It's really, really a strange experience. But then at night, all my hobbies are the same. I'm a gamer. I do recording, and that part has not changed at all. So it's a really strange dichotomy, psychologically speaking. But it's really odd. I really feel for the students too. My niece is actually going to be graduating this year, and she's going to miss out on her prom. She's going to miss out on her graduation, and everything like that. So yeah, I feel really bad for the students at the university that I'm working at, because for them it's like there's this big parade and people come back for reunions and things like that. So they're gonna, they're gonna miss out, unfortunately.
Well, and my experience as someone who I do still have to go into work and I have to drive through multiple towns to get to my office, it is very interesting to me to see the varying attitudes and behaviors in different towns, because they aren't all the same. Like some will be totally empty and some it seems like business as usual.
But everybody's doing okay.
So far.
Surviving.
Good.
Jonathan, can I make a small suggestion, please? And I understand it's none of my business, but I've been telling everybody this. You're recovering from Corona. Once you do fully recover, might I suggest you donate as much blood as humanly possible, because they can use the antibodies from your blood and everybody else who's survived it and cured from it to find an antidote or find a cure.
Actually, that's the plan. I run a small research center here that's focused on clinical trials. So I will absolutely be donating blood and encouraging people to get involved in research if it works out for them, because that's the only way we're going to beat this thing. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's nice. I work at a small research and analysis lab, and we actually got to do some work for University of Colorado, or a subcontractor of theirs that was looking at trying to sterilize N95 mask material and seeing if the sterilization process caused the fibers to degrade at all. So I did a little piece of the analysis, but it was really interesting that they contacted us because their own labs are shut down right now. So a little lab like ours is something that they can use.
Yeah, very reluctantly shut down, might I add. It took
I understand that.
some significant arm twisting.
All right, we're going to move on. We wanted to make sure that everybody was okay. John, we're glad you're feeling better. Thank God. Let's get back to why we're here to talk about Outpost. We'd like to know, some of the questions were let's see, this is from Rachel, and she says, how much do you actors have into the plot of the story, into your character's voice, your individual lines, and your point of view? So from an actor's perspective, how much input do you guys feel you have into your character?
None.
Oh, don't we wish? Yep. Man, I'm surprised what my character does after I hear the audio.
I think we have a bit of an unfair advantage as some of the sillier characters on the show, in that some improvs just come really naturally in the moment, where we'll be asked to say a line and we'll just be in the moment and we'll say something different. And sometimes those lines make it into the show, which is pretty fun. I think we've sent a few story ideas to Tony and Dan. I think we're heading towards one of them right now, if I remember correctly.
I've also found that Tony and Dan are very receptive to ideas from the cast. I've had many late night chats with Tony about where we could take Lieutenant Farmer, because I was just kind of like the straight man for the Ferengi for a while. And which guys really not a problem, but I felt that here was a guy who was put out in the middle of nowhere that had a certain sort of attitude. So I wanted to see if we could explore why that is a little more. And a couple episodes later, I got the scripts for the I don't know how many, 2 or 3 that we did in a row, where it kind of gave him a little more depth. So for me, he's a little more, even for me, he's a little more real now. And I appreciate that very much, guys. So
I know that when I've spoken with Tony by Facebook chat in the past, sometimes we will get into talking about Monty, how he would react in a certain situation, and inevitably, whatever I'm talking about will show up in a script later on. And I'm sitting going, okay, cool, they're listening to what I'm thinking about as far as what's going on in Monty's head. The one thing I've not seen yet, but I'm not going to actually campaign for that. I might do it as a fan piece of my own. Because when we're talking about little bits of what motivates the characters, I'll start writing little bits of fan fiction myself to write later on. I know our guys here playing Burke and Turgle, I wrote a little thing in Facebook about Monty confronting them once, and they're like, oh, dude, you've got to record this. And I've still got the script set aside to do, but the one I really want to do is Monty taking his Kobayashi Maru test. Oh, that was fun.
In my case, I'm not giving any background whatsoever. I mean, I read the part, and basically, I just try to do my best as to sound what I think the character would sound like. I've had characters that sounded like Bugs Bunny. I've done characters that sounded like Captain Kirk. Others that sounded like a flat-out Vulcan. I just make it up as I go.
And I could piggyback off of you.
Huh?
I was just gonna say I could piggyback off of you and say I can relate with you because I feel the same way. Like, we don't get a lot of information on our characters, and I think that's the beauty and the joy of it, is that we can make all these weird sound effects and weird noises, and of course with Dan and Tony's and everyone's direction, be like, hey, this is good, or oh no, that's too silly, we need to tone it down. And that's what I really appreciate about the Outpost family, is that they're really good at communicating and let us see what their vision is, and then we try our best to emulate the characters he wants us to hear. And Thomas, I definitely agree with you. It's a lot of fun making all those silly voices.
The funny thing is, I've been supplying Tony and Dan with sound effects and background music ever since I got involved with Outpost. But the only relevant contribution I made to the actual show itself was when I came up with the idea of calling Exler Boss, because she's from Sigma Iota too. That's the only relevant contribution I made to the whole dang show.
I appreciated whenever, on occasion, Tony has asked for my input about Dr. Winston, who said, I can think of a particular conversation. It happened to be the year when the Saints were in the Super Bowl, and he had asked me how he thought Winston would react in a particular situation. He said knee-jerk reaction, and I gave him knee-jerk reaction, and it pretty much wound up in a future episode. But I appreciate that, like you say, that they listen, and they will ask you for your input, because once you've gotten hold of your character, no one knows them better than you. They write them, but you're the one living them, and by living them, you're drawing people, you're drawing the listeners in.
Yeah, in my case, it's like visiting an alter ego of mine in a way. I mean, I get the script and there are directions about, Jenith is making an action or she's doing something. And there's one scene that is probably one of the most thrilling ones I ever did that just sounded amazing when it was done. And it was a murder scene. And I had to find that inside me, and that wasn't in the script. So a lot of what I have endowed Jenith with, I've had to do a lot of reading about the Klingon Empire and about Klingon history. And fortunately, there's some really good canon books out there that they go into a little bit more about the Klingons, so I can at least bring that to it. Every once in a while, she'll surprise me. There'll be some line that, oh, she's really going to say that, and then I have to find a way to make it really happen with her.
So if you guys could not play your character, what character would you want to play on Outpost, and why?
I want to play Moogie. I want to be the Moogie.
Moogie isn't our character.
Tony, can I interject an idea I've been trying to push on you for the past 2 years?
We'll talk about it offline.
Oh, come on. I want them all to know.
That's okay. We'll save.
Fine. I'll respect it. Bye.
Oh, I don't know. I always wanted to be Verk. I hear he's pretty smart.
Did you just compliment me? I don't know if that's literally ever happened.
It's a Freudian slip.
I guess we should ask John, our chief, what he thinks, Chief Knox. If he wasn't our notorious tinkerer of the ship, what
You
other
call me a
characters would he be
tinkerer?
interested in?
Oh, Knox is in the room.
Is that what I heard? A tinkerer? No, you know what? I don't want to play anybody else. I love him. I'm close to
I love
him.
Knox. Knox is
I-
one of my all-time favorite characters, if I may say.
I know who that guy is, and Tony and I talked about it when we started. I mean, I like that guy.
Can't
For-
imagine anybody else playing him.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Nobody can play Knox but you, John.
He's gruff and he's grumpy and he's he's that uncle you don't really
You
want to come
basically
to
don't give a
Thanksgiving.
crap.
Nope.
This is I do. actually the point where I probably need to say something because the part I originally auditioned for was Knox.
Oh,
I can actually totally see that, Edward.
Whoa.
I could totally see that.
Well,
I'd love to see like this total moment where they get each other's personalities swapped out into each other's body, and you've got to do the Monty attitude, and I have to do the Knox attitude.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Oh yeah.
Oh God, I would love to do something like that. Oh jeez.
Listen, I've got to get down to engineering. You talk to your mom about how you want to get
How
this.
about, how about an artifact that we found somewhere that we got messing around with? Something like that. Like a medical artifact you found somewhere.
Oh, the
Swap it out.
turnabout and theater thing.
Do the Stargate. Do the Stargate routine.
Tony, you making notes?
Yeah, I'm sure Dan is because he's not on the chat
Dan-
right at the moment.
Yeah.
And see, somebody asked where we get all the story ideas from, and I think that it started originally in high school. Dan and I did a Witch Away Adventures type thing to do Star Trek, and then when we started doing the Outpost thing, a lot of the ideas came from Dan, and then he writes a script and he sends it to me, and I tweak it a little bit and send it back, and it goes back and forth about 7 or 8 times, and then it gets formatted and shipped off to all you guys, and then I give you a short deadline of about 2 weeks to record all your lines and ship it back to me. And then if I have a good 3 days, I can edit and mix the episode. That's working on it a lot. And then we can usually crank a whole episode out in about a month. But now that things are weird, and 2019 was a horrible year for me, and it was a horrible year for a lot of people, and now 2020 is even a worse year. We got back into it, and we're starting to ramp back up again. And like I've said on our Facebook post, we've got a lot of episodes in the can. We're just trying to tie them all together and make sure that they fit. Dan is grousing about the fact that the 2 episodes we've already got pre-recorded and almost finished are going to have to wait a little bit because we're going to write an episode in the middle to connect the 2. So we're going to have another episode in there. So we're working on that right now. So in a rough thumbnail sketch in the short time that we have, that's how an episode works put together and about how long it takes. So for everyone here, what is your favorite episode of Star Trek, the original series?
No, boy.
The Doomsday Machine, the ice cream cone that ate planets for a living.
That's a tough one. There's so many good ones.
City on the Edge of Forever.
I
It's
have
hard to go
agree
wrong with that
City
one.
on the Edge of Forever.
That's a good choice.
That's a great one.
Balance of Terror.
Mm.
2.
Mine's the
The
piece of
mud,
the action
the
if
mud
you have-
duo. The 2 muds. I'd have to stay together for some reason. I just laugh like heck every time I see those. I love those 2 episodes.
If I may be allowed to interject something, the reason I like the Doomsday Machine so much is because, logically speaking, Decker should never have been allowed to take command. His entire crew was wiped out. The man was in a state of shock by McCoy's admission, and he still was allowed to take over the Enterprise. That's why I think that episode is my favorite, because it's the most ridiculous.
McCoy should have relieved him.
Right there on the spot, as soon as he tried to assume command.
My vote would be for a mock time.
HP.
Yeah,
That's
I'd
a
have
good
to
one, too.
agree with a
Yeah.
mock time. You just have
But
the
between that
absolute
and City.
seriousness mixed with the levity. it just hands down that one shows everyone's range so well.
Right.
Speaking of
Nobody's
range,
voting for Spock's brain?
Oh,
Wait, I'm gonna change
you.
my answer.
You'll notice no one's making a comment. They're too busy laughing.
Okay, speaking of
You
range,
talk about somebody doing a walk-on performance of their acting. Nimoy actually got to do it, and he was actually paid to do it. He was, please, walk on, do nothing, just be there. Okay.
I can't believe I forgot. I gotta change my answer. I'm Mud.
okay, so we're gonna move on. Thank you.
I'm Mud, and
Questions
Mud's
are piling
women
up,
are the
guys.
best 2 episodes, man. They were great.
All right, so the
Yeah.
questions keep piling up. I'm trying to get to them all. Somebody asked, could you do something in your own character's voice so we can see you talk as your character?
Ooh, something in my. Let me find something.
That's what I'm doing right now, so that's about it.
I use the same voice also.
Captain Buchanan, Dr. Brittal, welcome aboard the Essex.
All right. You ready? You ready, Dad? On a count of 3, we're gonna die.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. We're gonna die.
And I will be here to help you do it, you talk.
And I want to point out,
Bravo.
I want to point out that Ben is probably the world's tallest Ferengi.
That's true.
He's 6'4".
Nice lobes too.
It's
my
thank you for noticing.
Oh.
I'm not stalling. I'm looking for something.
All of you are just part of that other federation. I'm part of the first federation.
Yes, you're still a munchkin.
You know how hard it is to do that voice? I have to almost swallow my tongue.
Hey, I had
Sounds
even
like that
worse
would-
problem. Every time I did Mel Hermanson, my voice would crack after a half hour. And I did it for 3 freaking episodes, man.
You know, one of the
Yeah.
best times I ever had doing Jeneth, I had a really bad cold. And so I really had like a stuffed up head and a crappy sore throat. And she was just wonderful.
Yeah, I can really only do, if I have an episode with a lot of lines for Verk, I have to do it in 2 stints because it's too
Yeah.
difficult on my voice to do the whole set.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys, do the voices that are scratchy? Like, what the heck? What kind of tea do you drink?
I drink a lot of water before I do Jeneth, and I really have to break it up into 2 or 3 sessions. And I also have tea, and then there's also some throat spray that I use. I forget the name of it, but it helps a lot. But I do have to take pretty constant breaks because it's one of those things where people who do video games have to take a lot of breaks because they're screaming and yelling. And it's the same way with Jenna. She's pretty profound in that way.
If I may interject something, actually doing Mel Hermanson was very difficult with my voice. But if anybody here listens to Star Trek Excelsior, I originally started in fan fiction doing the voice of Felipe Hermes. Now, I'm half Mexican myself, so doing the accent wasn't a problem. So when I got over to doing Mel Hermanson, I just used the same voice with a different accent. But it still is difficult because when I'm doing Hermes, it just scratches the hell out of my throat. I'm basically, the only thing that helps me is soda. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. But Hermanson was even worse because I had to not only remember that I was doing that voice again, but I also had to remember I was doing another accent with that same voice.
Chris, you have a problem with that with Melion too, don't you?
Yeah, because with Melion, part of doing her voice is stopping breathing while I'm talking. So for me, there's a lot of, well, Tony can attest to the fact there's a lot of coughing at the end of a line because I'm trying to catch my breath again. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, this one goes to Dan. What inspires you to write an episode, aside from the love of Star Trek and being a writer?
What inspires me?
Yeah, what inspires you?
Just the writing. I mean, to sit down and create something on the screen that wasn't there before. I'm not really sure how to answer that. If you're a writer, you want to write. Well, the ideas pretty much flow from what's happened before. because it's a process. You basically go from what is going on in their lives, and sometimes what's going on in the world can sort of sneak in there. And unfortunately, we can't be too topical because we can't keep up with what's going on in the world. That happens a lot faster than the scripts do. But you can still deal with reality to some extent.
I guess I'm curious what inspired the original setting for Outpost of Deep Space Three and the Pinch and all that.
I guess that'd be my gig. I originally went to Dan because I'd been teaching and I'd been working with the theater department where I was teaching. And I was moving to a desk job, but I wanted something creative, so I wanted to come up with something. And I came across Star Trek audio drama, and so I kicked it around and asked Dan. Finally, I go, "Hey, we can do this? We've got the technology. Let's sit down and do this." And I said, but let's do it not from the captain's perspective. Originally, John, the great centerpiece was going to be Greg Torkelson. And we were going to originally call it Star Trek XO and focus on the executive officer and the trials and tribulations he goes through. And so Dan and I sat down and started working on it. And it took us an entire weekend just to come up with the opening piece for the show, the one that John narrates every episode for us. And it started out from there. And then suddenly, because of the talent that exists in this live Facebook group and all the voices that have contributed to it as well, the show really took on a life of its own. The characters blossomed. They created opportunities for Dan and I to play with them and create characters that were really rich and deep. And it literally is writing itself in a lot of respects. I mean, like when Brittany took on the role of Engineer Gliss, it was one of those parts that just naturally evolved. We want somebody with that youthful enthusiasm to appear and go, this isn't so bad. I mean, we're having a great time doing what we're doing. And as opposed to Chief Knox, who's like gruff and grumbling and complaining but still having a good time. And then you got other characters that are gruff and grumbling and are not having a good time. But it was all the talent that started to emerge that came from it that changed the show into what it is today. And I don't think that it could have survived focusing totally on the XO. Don't get me wrong, John, you're a great actor, but I don't think it would have been totally as rich as it is right now with the ensemble cast that we have.
And that might have been before my time. So obviously I'm sort of the second Torkelson in the way that kind of Doctor Who style. So,
but you've been there
really
longer.
I have been there longer officially, yes, but still
So more like a
second
Starbucks
Torkelson.
analogy, really.
That's true.
If I may be allowed to say one thing before we actually end this thing, I just wanted to acknowledge and pay homage to our dearly departed actors in the show, namely Michael Liebman. I don't know of the others who have passed away, if any, hopefully not, but I just wanted to acknowledge him.
Yes,
Michael was a fabulous actor. He really was.
Definitely will be missed.
I
Here's a
actually
quick
have something to read in Monty's voice if you want.
Please.
I know somebody mentioned
go.
Doctor Who a little bit earlier. Go. Hey, do you mind if I tell you a story? One you might not have heard. All the elements in your body were forged many, many millions of years ago in the heart of a faraway star that appears. These elements came together to form new stars and new planets, and on it went. The elements came together and burst apart, forming shoes and ships and sealing wax and cabbages and kings, until eventually they came together to make you. You're unique in the universe. There is only one you, and there will never be another.
There's one thing that I want to see Monty say. That's his catchphrase.
Oh, well, that's all there was for me to read of the Doctor Who quote, no more and no less.
Okay, so here's the question.
Tony?
Yeah.
We're doing a dream game.
I just wanted to point out too, when you were talking about how the characters develop themselves, if you listen through Outpost, when Verk and Turgle were introduced, we were actually a lot smarter than we are now. and and over time, it became clear that playing the village idiot was a good comedic foil, and we did it well. And so, in a sense, we got dumber as things went along. But it's been a fun ride.
Hey, graduate school will do that to you.
Speaking of a long time ago, you still owe me 3 bars.
It's like the arc with Dr. Smith, wasn't he? He started out in Lost in Space as this really dangerous and capable character, and then sort of graduated into, oh, the pain, you know.
Okay, let's see. Dan, questions for you. Do you have a replacement ship for the Chimera?
Replacement? I think they'd kill us if we tried to replace the Chimera. So, no.
Look, you're the writer, dude. You're the one that said she's being decommissioned.
I bet Knox has something to say about that.
Yeah, you'd at least have to deal with Knox.
Shouldn't you be trying to keep Chimera from being blown apart in the first place?
I'm not supposed to give any spoilers.
Okay, so John, what is Knox's favorite alcoholic drink? A brew?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a beer. A beer and night, and just one, because I've got important work to do.
Will we ever get to see a Mirror Universe episode or episodes?
Ooh, that'd be fun.
That's a Dan question.
I would love that.
Would that mean that Monty's a
That
nice
would be
guy?
a fun one-off.
I can imagine Admiral Havelock being in the Mirror Universe. Holy moly.
Again, spoilers. Although, there are some things that when we started this, we said we were not going to do. We were not going to do time travel. And I think it would have to be a very good story to do a mirror sort of thing. But you never know. The pinch, anything can happen at the pinch. That's why we have it.
Never say never.
I can't imagine how Monty might be, because I remember reading the DC Comics Mirror Universe stories right after Star Trek 3. I imagine Monty almost as a resistance leader against the Emperor and the Empire.
I don't know. I see the mirror Monty as sort of a hippie.
The funny thing is, I see the Mirror Universe Havelock as a priest.
I kind of imagine the Mirror Universe Deep Space Nine is run by Verk and Turgle. I don't know. Maybe we're geniuses over there.
Yeah, so I guess that would make Janet some kind of a princess or something.
There you go.
Okay, so here's another question for plot ideas. Will Knox ever get involved with Section 31 for an adventure?
Whoa, you already have a Section 31 operative, 2 of them on board the station.
I have no official comment on that. Neither does Lance.
I'm out.
Oh, are you? Really?
2 that you know of.
I don't see, frankly, I don't see Knox as a Section 31 kind of guy.
Okay. All right, so if you all could meet any actor in the Star Trek universe, who would it be?
Q.
I actually got a chance to meet Walter Koenig one time, so he was a really nice guy.
Oh, that's easy for me. Scott Bakula.
Oh, I met Scott Bakula, but it was long before he was on Enterprise.
Oh, sure. Rub it in.
I always like Strand.
And he's every bit. What you see on the screen is what you get. He is that. He is a gentleman. He's a consummate.
Yeah,
Back when I was 11 or 12, I actually went to a lecture done by Gene Roddenberry at the local college. I got to ask him, okay, they've blown up the Enterprise. What are you going to do about that? He basically looked out at the audience and said, I told Paramount they got themselves into this mess, they can get themselves out.
Well, since I work with Starfest in Denver, I've met a number of the actors anyway, but I think I would probably want to meet Majel Barrett Roddenberry, just because I think she brought so much to the character of Luxana Troy.
Also, she was the ship's computer on the Enterprise. All Starfleet vessels, she was the ship's computer.
Yeah, I had wished I'd had the opportunity to meet Leonard Nimoy before he passed. He was such an incredible actor and so skilled. And I would have loved the opportunity to have done that. Speaking of Majel Barrett, I did see her at StarCon some years ago, and she always come across to me as very down to earth. Very, what you see is what you get. Very nice individual.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the Leonard Nimoy. The man was just a genius in everything that he was doing in the world. His photography was actually brilliant. Just his attitudes on life, I would love to have known him.
You know, the funny thing is, I actually met Gene Roddenberry. I stood in line for 3 hours just to ask him a question, and I damn near got kicked out of the convention asking him that question. Seriously, not a joke, not a joke. I asked him one question. I asked, was Carol Marcus from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan that little blonde lab technician that Gary Mitchell was referring to in the second pilot? He thought about it for a second, then he shot bolt upright so fast he shot the chair out from behind him and hit the wall behind him. And he screams at the top of his lungs, "No, but she should have been!" 4 security people tackled me thinking I said something to piss them off.
Oh, no.
All right, so here's another question. Where did I go? I lost my place. Are you all professional voice actors, or is this a hobby?
In my case, it's a hobby.
Define
I'm trying like hell to be a professional one.
Yeah, I consider myself purely amateur. As far as voice work, there is an element that I do that's other duties is assigned. I work in municipal IT, municipal government, and when they found out that I do voice acting on the internet, they're like, "Oh, well, you can do things for us like do our telephone recordings and reading and stuff like that." So I ended up taking on that. So technically professional, only because I was asked to do it. But from my perspective, no, I'm purely amateur.
I narrate science documentaries, not as a Klingon.
It's basically a labor of love hobby for me, but I have done a couple of things. I had a friend ask me to do a voice recording to play for his business when people would call in. So if you want to stretch the professional thing, somewhere on that thin line, I'm in there. But I do this simply because I enjoy doing it. It's a way to escape the reality around me sometimes.
For me, it's a hobby as well, I'd say. And I just wanted to sneak this in here a little bit. The only reason why I am a part of Star Trek Outpost is because I was first a fan of Star Trek Outpost. I was completely obsessed with every script, every character. Obviously Knox and Buchanan were my favorites early on, so it's often surreal for me to get a script and to see that I have lines interacting with these characters that I kind of admired as a fan. So this is a hobby, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It feels very just like an honor to be in the show with all of these legends.
I started
Jonathan,
off as a listener. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I sent Outpost an email after like episode 15, I think it was, just saying like, "Hey, wow, I love the show. Episode 15 was a great episode. I keep looking out for a casting call." And Tony said, "Oh, well, you should send in something." So yeah, I completely agree with you, Jonathan. The first time I was like, "Ooh, I have a line with Monty." Oh.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
And the way
Yeah,
I
I
got
can't wait
into
to have a line with Monty.
I wouldn't one better. I kidnapped his ass.
You guys are going to give me the big head. My hat's not going to fit.
Well, I have to agree with them all. Whenever I came in, it was pretty much with Monty, and that was probably the best way I could have hoped to come into the universe.
And
So,
Monty was so mean to all of you guys.
hey, true fact, he has not been mean to me yet.
Tiffany, what do you think?
Oh, for me, when I started out, this was definitely more of a hobby, but for a really long time, I've been an aspiring professional for voiceover. I'd say I'm semi-professional. I do a lot of scratch voices for friends in animation and voices for spec commercials that shoot out of Chicago, which is interesting because I just moved from Chicago, but it's nice that obviously voice can be done everywhere. So some meditation reels and that, but looking to update commercial and character animation reels as well. So yes.
John, what about you?
Yeah, I do quite a bit actually. But I, a while back, got into stage acting, and so I was in plays, and that's kind of somewhere around there we met. Tony, I don't recall how we met, but I've met many of you, Nick and Dan and so on. And then I said, well, now, yeah, let's go ahead and voice act, because that'll be fun, because I've been announcing acting, narrating. I do quite a bit of narration and quite a bit of commercial.
Now, John, you're the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs radio, right?
The radio network.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're in like 7 states, and yeah, we had a good year.
Well, we won't hold it against you that you're a Chiefs backer, but
Hey, you've had your time.
yeah, we have. All right, so Dan, this is a question for you and me. It says, is it hard to act in a scene while you're judging your own lines, making sure they're good? My lines are never good.
I have to second that idea. I don't do any of the mixing, so I don't know how things sound, sort of in the middle. Writing my own lines, I definitely cognizant that it's something that I need to be saying, and I don't want to sound too bad. I don't want to, make it all about me. So I think you're certainly more aware when it's your own voice that's going to be it.
Yeah, it's really hard, and I think I'm harder on myself than I am on the rest of the actors that come in to give me lines. Ask Micah here. I've sat here and cussed myself out several times because I can't get lines right. Because it's close enough. Go for it. It's like, no, it's not right yet. So yeah, it's difficult when you're listening to your own self. And I don't like my voice on the audio. I just hate it. And I'm sure that a lot of people are in the same boat. So here's a question. Do your actors hear the voices of other actors when they record the lines?
No.
Yeah, for the most part, no.
No, we're just reading right off the screen.
Yeah, they're usually writing. But we did have an episode where Jeneth talked to someone else, and you actually had a Skype meeting, didn't you?
Yeah, he was recording at his end, and I had Skype going, and we were actually doing some sound effects too. And one of the sound effects was me taking a mug and slamming it down on a table, and it was so loud it pinned the meter on his end. I think he was in Arkansas, maybe? I don't remember who it was, but yeah, we did that. So we were connected by Skype, but recording it each on our own workstations.
And there are times when we'll get together before we actually record. I've gotten together with Elise and Vince and gone over scenes.
Yeah.
And I would record those sessions just to get a feel for, how I wanted to record it eventually. So
You know, okay.
we do online collaboration. If we both understand that the scene is important enough that we need to, I guess, get it right.
Yeah,
Because
I
most of the
did.
time, most of us will give Tony like 4 different takes of each line. A little look behind the curtain there.
Well,
but-
it's kind of difficult to do something like that, if I may interject, Greg, because when you have like 3 or 4 paragraphs of lines, it's really hard to do 3 or 4 takes on the same one.
Yeah.
It's a
But
discipline.
I do it anyway.
I think it helps when you're working with established characters in the script, because even though you don't literally hear people's voices, you can kind of, I have an understanding of how Lieutenant Farmer is going to sound and how he's going to react. So as I'm doing my line, I kind of imagine like, okay, this character is going to sound like this. They're going to say it this way. This probably is how I'm going to respond. So
I was totally just thinking that exact same thing, and that comes from just knowing the characters and knowing your character, and so that I'm glad you said that, because that's how I feel about that as well. So when you do the 3 or 4 takes, you can kind of narrow it down to how you would respond based on how that person would say something to you.
Yeah, I
Sometimes I'll read the other person's line as a lead into mine.
I do the same
if
thing.
it works, yeah.
I do the same thing. It helps.
Yeah, it's at the risk of being accused of hearing voices in my head when I do my lines. If it's with established characters, I will hear it in their tone and in their voice as I'm doing my lines, and it helps me immensely to be able to imagine what that situation would sound like.
Yeah, in an event, you can also it helps you to imagine them responding differently or leading into what your character is going to say, so that you can give several, like you say, several different options for Tony to pick from.
I'm actually
hearing that voice, knowing the characters that you're working with so well that it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction to react to them.
I've actually been able to rope my husband into reading with me, and I had lines with Ensign Thomas. So he's also, my husband's also a fan of the show, so he really enjoyed that part. And of course, I enjoyed it because I was yelling at Ensign Thomas. So.
And I think that reading the lines actually worked for me when in the last script I was in. I was paired with a character that hadn't shown up before, or maybe had been once before, so I hadn't actually heard him. So I kind of had to read them out loud and then read into my own lines as well.
I know when I get a new script in the mail from Tony, very often the first thing I'll do is read the scene that I get with all the characters to my wife, who has to suffer through that because that's the peril of being married to me. But honestly, I actually had voices for all of them before I heard any of you reading it in these voices. Arbin coming out of me sounds nothing like Arbin. Actually, I had this English accent for Arbin, and he was very quiet, very, very, very underspoken, but very meaningful in his speech. And when I hear Arbin, it's like, okay, okay, wow. But yeah, I do have voices for them, but that I hear. But sometimes working with some of the other actors is possible. I know for the big Nightmare Before Christmas Carol thing, me and Elise got together on the phone and talked through her Ghost of Christmas Present scene. And that was really a fun thing to do. I never get to do that.
I actually enjoy doing little rehearsals like that because it just helps you get a little deeper into the character or the character you're working with.
Sorry to disappoint you, the chap. I didn't mean to disappoint you with my voice. Would you rather I change it to this for the next performance? I could do that for you if you'd rather.
Oh dear, dear, dear. Here we go again.
So
what about yours, computer?
Since Ben and I, until recently, lived in the same house, we would often practice Verk and Turtle together. And there was one scene, I think, where we were going to the First Federation and we had to go through the meteor field, that we actually set up a camera and did sort of the Star Trek thing where, you're doing this and we're going to die. So we recorded it mostly to amuse Tony. but it was a lot of fun doing it and actually getting to physically act it out instead of just voice act it out.
Yeah, there's a handful of Verkenturgle scenes that were actually recorded live. We've been doing this long enough now that I started an Outpost as a high school student. So
And Ben is about to finish a PhD, just to give you a context.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Welcome to the
Congrats.
club.
There is definitely a lot of brain power in this group. I mean, there's one PhD here. I know there's at least a couple more in the group, several master's degrees. I mean, there's a lot of brain power in here. So I know we're over time, and if you have to go, we understand. But got a couple more questions. If you want to hang in, we'll try to get them done. Nick says we can go on a little bit longer.
Sure.
Go for it.
So
interestingly, where
I
else
have
do
nowhere
I
to
have
go.
So the question came up about the computer and who we got to voice the computer. I got Micah to voice the computer, and the reason why actually goes back to the original Star Trek, because the original Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry got Majel Barrett to record the lines of the computer. Well, the
Excuse me for a moment. I will be back momentarily. I'm sorry. It's going to go in. Take a minute.
The voice of the computer was the producer's wife. Well, guess what? The producer's wife gets a
Perfect.
Tradition.
Grand tradition.
When Dan and Tony were talking about doing this, I knew it was something that was going to take a lot of time. So as they were talking about it, because Dan would come over here every Saturday and they would discuss it. And I said, look, I don't care if you want to do this, but I better have a line in every episode. And
Careful what you wish for.
there we are.
Thankfully, a lot of hers can be recorded and reused over and over again. But there are many times I've had to grab her and pull her in. And in fact, because she's done so well on the computer, the fan production Starship Intrepid recently asked her to voice a line for the computer in one of their episodes.
Oh, nice.
So she
Awesome, Micah.
might be doing a computer for Star Trek Intrepid. So
Sweet.
okay, so the question, has anybody from Star Trek ever contacted us?
Yes.
Really?
Well, you have a follower, don't you? That's the son of somebody?
They haven't contacted us. They might be following us. We'd love for them to contact us, but hopefully in a good way. We don't want it in a bad way, like Axonar. That
Please no cease and desist.
no cease and desist.
Absolutely.
No bad way. We're just doing
I've
this
got
for
this
fun.
secret little wish that Will Wheaton listens to us or something. I hope.
God
that-
will, if you are, let us know, please. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
So I actually have had contact with Will Wheaton, and I have yet to ask him. He's a very approachable guy. But I've yet to ask him whether or not he listens to this show. So the next time I talk to him, I will ask him.
Awesome.
Man, he tweets us out, and our subscribers like quadruple the next day.
I follow him on Tumblr, and he's got interesting things to say quite a lot of the time.
What was that, Edward?
I follow him on Tumblr, and he's usually really interesting when he's posting things.
He's an awesome guy, and smart as a whip, and he is nothing like Wesley Crusher.
Thank God.
Yeah, he actually came to Boston and gave a talk one time, and he posted that he didn't think more than about 200 people would show up, and we filled a theater with about close to 1,000 people just for Will Wheaton.
I believe it. So here's a question. Which character plot line would you all like to develop further? This is for any of the actors. Which character plot line would you like to develop?
Tony, I wanted to tell you the plot line I thought about, and you made me wait till after the damn
Yeah,
thing.
well, you and I'll talk about that later.
I'd love to see more First Federation stuff.
Well, I've already talked to Dan about what we're going to do with Jenneth. Jenneth is out there wandering around with problems. We need to resolve those.
She's pissed. All Klingons are pissed.
I want to hear from Newmar again.
Oh, true.
Newmar.
who?
He was the boss that was on the Enclave, I think it was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was
Dan,
that
you're taking notes,
that
right?
actor was really fantastic. Newmar.
I would kind of like to see a little background on Winston, not just because I play Winston, but the character, with knowing what little bit we know about her. I think it would be, good to maybe take a look back, swing by the old hometown once, see what's going on, or something
Miss
like that.
Elise, if I may interject something, isn't your character a
Augment.
I was gonna say she's an Allurian, but no, I think you said a Gamaloid.
Right. She's from
yeah.
Betazoid, but she's a Gammazoid.
Oh, Betazoid. I apologize. I thought she was an Allurian. I respectfully apologize.
I've always actually wanted to learn a little bit more about Dr. Bertal and his background as well. I think there's a lot that could be explored there.
No more medical terms. No.
Oh, come on, Carrie. They're all made up. You know that. I mean,
You're supposed to be good at techno talk.
right.
Yeah, that's what I said when Terry said, "What do you want to do?" The doctor said, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And then I later went, "Oh my God, what did I get myself into?"
Carrie, no disrespect intended to you,
actually.
but I'd like to know what happened to Larry Balin.
I would like to see more of what Arbin and Monty did. I would like to hear more of that, because he went through some stuff, it sounds like, and I'd like to hear more of the what happened there, and have expansion on that myself. How about you, Ed?
Like, what happened where? Like, when they were on their way back from the planet during their long field trip, or just what they got up to in the past? Like, did they go to
prior? I was thinking, like prior, because it was obvious in those scenes they already knew each other quite well.
Yeah,
they were already tolerating their quirks. Yeah, so it was a part of it.
It's like one of the very few people he's ever let deeply into his life. It would be interesting to see how Arbin got there, aside from just their shared trauma from back in the day.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, here's a question for Verk and Turgle. Have you ever answered your phone as your character to brush off telemarketers?
I can't say that I have, but it's not a bad idea.
So Ben's brother Mark has often answered the phone speaking Klingon to telemarketers. Usually have to wipe the phone down after we're done.
I had a reverse.
Yeah, how do you think my microphone looks?
Once. I mean, essentially, when I'm not doing this, a lot of times I'm doing tech support for different softwares. I actually had a software call. They got in touch with me, and they're like, "You sound familiar. Are you on a podcast or something?" Wait a minute. Wait. Let me get. Are you on Outpost? And I'm sitting there geeking out in my chair going, "Oh my God, he recognizes me." It's like, yeah, you're Monty, aren't you?
Wow.
Tracked down. You've been tracked down.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt here. I want Tag. Are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I want you to tell us the story of last summer when you came to the Fort Collins Comic-Con.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll make it short. I don't want to take too much time. But basically, so in July of last year, I was working on a big project at work, and I wanted to find a good podcast to listen to while I was doing all that. And I came across Star Trek Outpost, and I just fell in love with it immediately. I listened to it nonstop for something on like 3 weeks or however long it was between when I found it and when the Fort Collins Comic-Con was. And then, I kept hearing all the minisodes going like, oh, this was recorded at such and such Comic-Con, or this other one. And so I thought I'd look it up, see where it was, when it was. I missed the Starfest one, but then I found out that the Fort Collins Comic-Con was in 3 days. And so I booked a flight, the red eye out of Dallas that Saturday morning, got down there and came across you guys at the photo booth. And I think I was speechless. I don't remember the next like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is them. This is the guys. Yeah, I was just so thrilled to be there, honestly. and I still get excited just thinking about it. So
Okay, then here's the flip side of that, Micah. Explain what happened after she started to geek out,
What do you mean?
but about the rest of us, Dan and me and
Oh
Paul.
my god. So yeah, so Tig is like, oh my gosh, I recognize your voice and I recognize your voice, and then Nick walked up and, oh, I know you. You're like Tech Child. And then the three of them are like, oh my god, there's this, and they were geeking out just as bad, if not worse.
We were fangirling
So,
it. Yeah.
oh my god, they recognized us. So funny.
Well, and then about 10 minutes later, I was sitting at a table outside of that because I was arranging all the science speakers, and you came out with her and said, "You've got to meet this lady." So then we sat and talked for a while, and then I think you came in. You were in the mini-sode, weren't you?
yes, I was sweating the entire time, but yeah, it was the time of my life.
And now
Oh,
so
yeah.
many of us have such stylish shirts.
Absolutely.
I'm so very glad you enjoyed them. Like, I just kind of made it on a whim. I'm like, oh, I need something for them to sign if I go, and on the off chance they find these guys. And so I just, the first thing that came to mind, I'm like, I'm going to make the space station. I'm going to have the sound wave inside of it.
It was a ridiculously creative idea. I really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Really
That's so
was.
sweet.
It was a wonderful
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really fun. Great idea.
So we love it.
I love the shirt. Love the shirt.
Okay, question for Elise. When they hear your voice for Dr. Winston, they get a lot of Dr. Beverly Crusher vibes. Did you use her as inspiration for your mannerisms and tone?
Not really. I just took it on, she's a professional. I've seen many women doctors in TV shows and like that. So I just took it from, use it as a professional, use a professional tone and take it from there. I really didn't, I don't think I've ever watched a lot of episodes with Beverly Crusher in them. Now, somewhere in the back of my mind, she was probably there, but not really. She's Winston is a combination of a lot of people.
Okay, another question for Verk and Turgle. Who would owe the most latinum?
Uh-oh.
Sorry, back up. Who would be the best gambler on DS3? And besides Verk and Turgle, who would owe the most latinum?
Wait a minute, you mean DS3 allows gambling now?
I guess we'll have to run that by the authorities.
I don't know.
I think it's a big gamble that we're even working for Uncle Vodek. I mean,
I would say Giles.
I could believe that. I could believe
Giles
Giles.
is an excellent gambler. Don't believe anything they say.
just remember, you're gambling at our establishment.
I dare say Farmer and oh god, I forgot the other guy's name. I'm so sorry. The other
Lancer.
Section 31 guy, Lancer. Yeah, I
Lancer.
dare say he'd wipe you guys out. Both
Yeah,
of
I
them
would be sweating bullets a little bit if Farmer came up to the table.
I have absolutely no comment on that whatsoever.
It's going to
Well, I'd be able to figure out if the table was rigged.
Of course, it all comes down to having open ears. So
Well, we have very big ears, so it's pretty easy for us.
And you can neither confirm nor deny whether you would win or not.
So here's a question. Why did you want to be part of Outpost?
I'll start. I started off, I guess it was after the first JJ movie came out. I was like, you know what? I'll bet that there's got to be podcasts or audio dramas or something. So I started searching through iTunes and started listening to all the ones that kind of had false starts and kind of faded away. And I found that a lot of them crutched themselves on tropes too much. Too many, Kirk and Spock said this and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in something that was in the universe, but completely new and different from what else was out there. And started listening to Outpost, and before I knew it, I was through the first, I guess at that time there were probably 18 or 19 episodes, and I had finished it, and I was just like, okay, when's the next one coming out? So I was completely a fan before I even thought of getting involved with it. Before I was friends with Carolyn um, through different voiceover channels as well. Before that too, and um, up when I started listening to the podcast, I had no idea she was involved with it until she had actually just casually mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're you're the Klingon, and you're Captain Baker, and all that." So
Yeah.
she said, "Well, just drop Tony a line and see if they need anybody." And I originally got in through uh, the trilogy for Buchanan, and I was actually Captain Pierce, which my friend R.C. Thorne has now taken over. But yeah, that's kind of how I got involved.
Yeah, I actually ran across it. I was studying voice acting and taking acting classes in Boston at the time, and ran across somewhere online you guys had a casting call. And so I thought, what the heck? And I listened to a couple of them, and then I went sent in, and I think I did a couple of back voices before Jennifer came along. And I think, Greg, I mentioned it to you when we did that thing with Bob Bergen, when we did that boot camp.
Yep.
I was running on the treadmill listening to whatever I could to fill up my time training, and I heard Outpost, and I said, "Oh, Ben, you ought to listen to this." And then he got the part as Lotran, and then next thing you know, we did that. What was the name of that planet?
It's the Melnoran planet.
Oh yeah, and
The
he was
Melnoran
like,
solution.
yeah, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, you could do this part. You could totally do this part." That's how we got sucked in.
Yeah, I really like you said, Greg. I started as a fan, and I considered pursuing acting just because I've always loved doing it. So it really is a treat to kind of have Outpost to kind of scratch the acting itch and still get to do my other stuff.
In my case, what got me involved in it is I originally started doing voiceover work in fan fiction with Star Trek Excelsior. The problem is, like Outpost, they were doing monthly episodes. Then all of a sudden, they started getting fewer and fewer and fewer until they only released 1 or 2 episodes a year. I was getting bored out of my mind because, as Lady Elise said, that this is a great way to escape the problems of reality. So when I came across Outpost, I listened to every single episode up to episode 25 at the time. That was all they had. And then I contacted Tony and begged him for parts.
I got into it because I think I was between captains in Excelsior, and I was looking around for something else to do, and I don't remember where I saw the audition posting, but I checked out the characters and I tried for one, and that's how I came to Outpost, because I find it kind of funny that getting into audio, I took a chance on I figure I'm going to try this, and the worst that whoever I audition for can say is, "Thanks for trying. Don't call us. We'll call you." And it was Excelsior that I started with, and like I say, it just got into it. And most of what I have done has been like in the the Star Trek universe or science fiction like that. But like I say, I was between captains, and I was looking for something to keep me going.
Yeah, I got started actually just before Outpost. I was a big fan of a fan show that Pennant Productions did some time ago, back when they were doing fan shows. It was Star Trek Defiant. And I'd always wanted, I became a big fan of that show, and I always wanted to do a role for them. And that's how I kind of got involved. I started with them, but I never could score casting for that show because it was always very popular. About 6 or 7 months after I got started with them, Tony announced the casting for Outpost. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a great opportunity. I've always wanted to do Star Trek. And so I'll throw my hat in. And I will admit, I too had tried out for the role of Bert Knox, and I am so glad that I did not get that role, because we would have not had John with us had that been the case. But Tony was great, and he offered me the role of of Rusty, and also to do the credits and the trailers, and that's kind of my gig since. And I thoroughly enjoy both of those roles. They're quite different from each other, but I have a good time each outing, whether or not I have lines as Steel. I've got an opportunity to come in every month, and previously on Outpost, and be there just to kind of bring everyone into the next episode. That's to me, that's an honor to be able to be that voice that people hear when they start listening to the episode, and they're ready to jump in, and I can kind of get them started. So I'm very thankful to have that opportunity.
I
remember.
started out.
Go ahead.
I started out as a fan of the show also, like from way back, probably about the same time that Ben became a fan. But I was always kind of a little bit chicken to audition. Mostly what I did was I did a lot of narration, and I did voiceover for student stuff. But I was thinking, oh, these people are really good. I didn't really, I wasn't ready for that. And then there was one set of auditions, probably a few years back. Sorry, is that me? Anyway, so there was a few auditions a few years back, and I auditioned for everything using like a number of accents and everything like that, and I didn't get anything. And I was like, oh well, there goes my chance. And I then Tony surprised me with an email, and he said, hey, I'm sorry we didn't get a part, but we're really interested in your voice. Do you think the next time you have auditions, then do you think you could try out for another one? I was like, sure. This was not the first time I'd heard this, so I was like, sure, I will definitely do that. And so then like I forget how long, maybe 6 months, a year goes by, and there's another set of auditions, and he actually emails me. He says, all right, you got another set of auditions. You're going to audition, right? And he was like, yeah, I'll audition. I was like, yeah, maybe I should audition for this, and I got the part. So if you guys are, just to say to anybody out there, if you're interested, do send in an audition. Don't be chicken like I did and miss out on all of those episodes. Just get in on the fun.
Tony does that. That's how it happened originally for me. I was going through fan production boards over and over again, sending in auditions for whatever seemed interesting. And of course, if I'm seeing Star Trek, yeah, I'm going to send an audition to that. And I read for everybody but Monty Buchanan that I could. I read for Torque, I read for Knox, I read for a couple of other male parts. And he was like, send me an audition for this character. He's going to like just sort of pop up every now and again and be generally unpleasant to people. And let's see if I want to hear how this works out for you to read that instead. So yeah, okay, sure. I hit him with that. And if you listen to that first couple of episodes, you can actually hear Monty isn't really nailed down yet. I was sort of coming across as this really affable uncle, and it really turned into something a lot more officious and nasty over time. But there was stuff underneath there too. But yeah, absolutely audition for stuff when you can, because you never know when the showrunner is going to get back to you and go, okay, hey, look, not those, but try this because I really hear you for this. I didn't hear me for that, but yeah, I read for it anyway, and look what happened, right?
I will say too, I'm probably the only one that came into this a little bit different. When I was living in Chicago, I was in a play with Dan's brother, Bill. We were in a Midsummer Night's Dream together. I was Hippolyta and Bill was Bottom. And I think he had moved out to LA maybe a year before I did. And then I was out here, and we still keep in touch. And I had one of our conversations hanging out, I said I was interested in getting into voiceover, and he's like, oh, well. And so he talked to Dan for me, who talked to Tony, and I got an email, and here I've been glissed since I've been in LA. So that's almost 14 years. So a little bit different than the way everyone else came to it, but kind of the same. If you don't ask, then you don't know.
I've had a part happen to me like that. Yeah, easiest audition I ever had. Someone recommended me, like, oh yeah, him.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I will say that I got involved in Outpost because I actually met Katie Gomez, who plays Renova Exler, at San Diego Comic-Con in 2011. And I only met Katie because she tried to steal my seat and pretended like it was hers all along. But we got to talking, and she told me that she had this role on Outpost, and I basically tore through the show in like 2 weeks, like we've heard from others. And I wrote these incredibly long emails to Katie about how much I love the show and how thoughtfully it was written and constructed and kind of very carefully positioned between all of these other wonderful Star Trek shows. And so eventually she really pushed me to send that email to Tony, and like everyone else, I got the kind of the Tony surprise where there was an opportunity where I didn't think there was one. So I'm grateful to Katie if you're watching, and I'm grateful to Dan and Tony for putting together something that's so far beyond anything that I could have hoped to stumble upon myself.
I got lucky. I, like a lot of people, had binged the show, found it, binged it, and went, oh my God, and emailed in, and happened to email at exactly the right time. I think it was right in between seasons. And Tony emails me back. He goes, well, I've got this one part that I need somebody to do. He's kind of the bad guy at the beginning of the coming season. Can you give me an audition for one of the people from the First Federation? I'm like, you want me to do it like the fake guy with the really deep voice or the little guy with the really high squeaky voice? The little guy with the really high squeaky voice. And I'm going, this ought to be interesting. So I figured out how to do the voice, sent it in. He's like, oh, that's perfect, Kate. Here's the script. And so I'm like, wow, that worked out.
Yeah, I kind of lucked into it because I'd been, I'm a truck driver, so I have plenty of time driving around all day long to listen to music, audiobooks, podcasts. I started picking up podcasts a lot, found Outpost and was binging those. And I just stayed with it throughout the run. And then a few years ago, I was at one of the conventions with Outpost showing up, all of the gnomes, and they're doing the little mini-sode. So Dan's up there, Tony's up there, they're handing out scripts saying, would anybody like to read? And of course, I love to hear my voice so much that I just shot my hand out there and a script practically fell into it. I enjoyed the read so much. It was so much fun just feeling like you're in the universe for just a few minutes that afterwards I asked them if they were looking for anyone else to join the crew. Tony went ahead and told me, sure, just go ahead and send in an audition. We can look into it, see what we can find and see what you sound like over the microphone. Then whenever the next convention was coming up just a few months later, I'd already sent in my audition, and Tony emails me, hey, we're thinking about advancing Lancer's story here. Would you be willing to show up at the next convention and reprise that role? Well, I was already going to go anyway, and of course I was going to show up just because I love these guys. But then I got to play Lancer a little bit more, and that just kind of paved for him to come straight onto the show, and it's been a blast ever since.
So can I say that when I first heard you on the show, that I thought that it was completely the opposite way that you actually got cast. I thought that you were cast first and were there as part of the regular cast.
Oh, good Lord, no.
was...
That was the first time I'd seen any of these guys in person. So it was just out of the blue. I wasn't even sure I was going to get to read for the part at first, but I guess the room was pretty small, so there weren't enough spaces in there for it to fill up and me not get a chance. So I really did luck into that, and I think that was one of my favorite days at any of the conventions I've ever been to.
I sort of just wandered into Tony's garage. I don't know what happened.
I was begging for a part. I'll be quite honest with you. Did go through and listen to every Star Trek fan podcast out there, and came back around and I said, I want to be with you guys. I literally did go through and listen to all of them and said, I'll pick one. And so I sent Tony my audition reel, and that I send up for other productions that I do. And that's what happened. Was that next thing I knew, it kind of like everybody else here. It was kind of like, I don't have anything right now, but and I did do another character. I can't remember which one it was. A brief couple episodes, and then all of a sudden, the actor who was playing Arbin had to drop out. And all of a sudden, it was like, "Do you want to do this? Would you do it?" It was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And Tony and Dan, I mean, seriously, I'll admit it to it. I am a snob about writing, and especially about continuity, and especially about Star Trek. And I did not hear anybody that was coming anywhere near the capacity or the caliber that they were showing. And so that's why I got out here, guys. Just want to put that in there. So to get on this tonight, I had to remove from my phone my 7-Eleven app. Okay, so guys, that tells you how important this is. My free coffees and everything else may have disappeared to be here tonight, but I sacrificed for you guys. No, seriously, guys, I'm so glad to be a part of the group.
I'm envious of all of you folks meeting up with one another at conventions. I have so wanted to come out west to you guys and take part, and money's just never there.
Welcome to my world. I'm in the same boat. I'm a security guard myself, and I just barely get above minimum wage. I can't go nowhere.
Well, I hate to brag or anything, but Tony actually came out to us.
I got
there was one time.
I was already out that way.
Once.
There was one time Tony was actually going to be here in California, where I live, in Southern California. He and Micah were going to be there, and Katie Gomez was going to be there, and I was invited to go over there, and I don't have a car.
He came out one of those years that we got nominated over at DragonCon for the Parsec Awards. So I got to meet him once. That was really, really great. I just want to come out and meet the rest of you at some point.
I have to say, I've gotten to meet a couple of you, but it really is a pleasure to meet so many more of you that I've never gotten to see in person. This is pretty fun.
Yes, it's great.
Right back at you, sir.
Even if it's virtual,
I consider it an honor to meet all of you. I've always wondered what everybody looks like, and I'm sitting there.
Well, I'm sure that's why we got the impetus to start this, because this whole Zoom group, Facebook Live thing was a result of a fan asking, can we all get together and see you guys? It was even suggested that we actually read a script this way, but I'm going, oh, dear God, no.
Oh, that'd be fun. Finally, us all together to read it.
Yeah, let's do the fall of Deep Space 3.
It would be so what I look like when I blow a line.
Maybe we could do it for the next one.
Yeah, at the very least, doing this as like a table read for, before we do the final recording, just getting a bunch of us together and doing a virtual table read. I've done that before, and that's really fun.
And then
that would be
kind of suggested.
I would love to do that. Yeah,
that would be fun.
It'd make for interesting viewing on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, but how are you going to fit Havelock into it other than a radio voice?
I don't know. But we were thinking that maybe for the 100th episode, we should all get together somewhere at some con and do it live. So the one thing we want to do is, it was mentioned before about the auditions. Please, if you want to join Outpost, send us an audition. Doesn't matter what you're reading, just read something. It could be the phone book, it could be a menu. Just read us something. Send us an audio recording of what you've done. Send it to me here at tony@giantgnome.com, and then we'll have it in the file, and we'll definitely call you if we've got parts, and we always have parts, right, Dan? Dan?
Always have parts.
Always have parts. Say yes, Dan.
My wife's read for 2 different characters
Dan.
now. It's how she ended up being Emily for Monty in that big thing.
It was kind of crazy. So we'll always accept an audition. So just send us an audition. Just send it as an MP3 or WAV file to me, and we'll see what we can do to get you in. Guys, I really want to thank you all for being here tonight. You make my day. You warm my heart. I love you all. Thank you. Without you, this could not happen.
Thank you for having me.
And
Yeah,
thanks to
thank you.
everybody for
Yeah, thank you.
bringing this
That was
all.
like
Good to
Thank
see
you.
everybody.
Hopefully this
fun.
can be a monthly thing or something.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Availability permitting, yeah.
We'll have to see what we can do. But thank you all again for being here, and thank you all for listening. We hope we gave you some distraction from the chaos that is going on in the world. And we hope to see you somewhere near DS3. Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
All of you be
Bye,
safe.
everyone.
Be safe.